RJ, we are back, and really everybody, we are back for another Emerald City Hockey post-game live. Appreciate everybody for joining us, but boy, this feels a little too familiar from some of the previous games experience and previous post-game lives that we've done, particularly going back to the last time this team was on the road, where we see a good goaltending performance from Joey Daccord, and the offense is just not there, and the Kraken just wait a little too long to wake up.
Yeah, this one felt a little bit like that Rangers game. It felt like other games in the past this season. Some of those 2-0 shutouts for a bit. And I see the score on here, even though the
Yeah,
Kraken
I know.
did get one,
I'm doing it
had to
now.
update the graphic. But it felt like some of those games, those Sunday back-to-back 2-0 shutouts for the Kraken, just really couldn't put a puck into the net until it was too late. Actually, twice, if you look to see the puck went into the net after the final horn a few seconds later. But that Joey Daccord with another fantastic goaltending performance. I feel like that's the story of this one, aside from the Kraken's inability to score. And unfortunately, it's another performance that's wasted.
Yeah, and it's just we're talking about it at the end of the live game commentary where we watched the game with everybody, all of our wonderful patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey. And it's another one too where there's just some kind of basic things that this team could do that would really help benefit the offense. It feels like, don't be so predictable. Don't just when you are able to generate your off the rush chances, don't just try to make the same passing play happen over and over and over. It's way too predictable. We saw it in this one. Riddick wasn't even going, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't biting on any of it. He knew to anticipate the pass. Like, there was nothing there. The defense knew to anticipate the pass. They weren't really pressuring the puck carrier. So there's the you're too predictable side of thing. And then on the flip side, you're seeing in late game desperate situations, even when their backs are against the wall, RJ, them barely having any sort of net front presence. Nobody's in the slot or down low around the crease waiting for a rebound opportunity. They just want to stay to the perimeter, and you're just never going to generate a lot of offense at just about any level of hockey doing that, and especially at the NHL level.
And this feels like a conversation that we were having last year, right? With the other coaching staff, how not enough players were going to the net. And unfortunately, it's a conversation we're having again right now, which makes me believe, as you've brought up, that it's a personnel issue. It's something about these players in this group where you just don't have enough players that have the will to go to those areas consistently.
That's my big concern. And it was something where that was maybe what in the air last season, right? Like the question kind of hanging there was, is this the coaching staff, right? And we chose to kind of think about it more from a coaching staff perspective because it felt like that was a little bit more realistic, right? Because the coaching staff didn't really seem to have a plan in general for the offensive zone. So them not having somebody net front would make sense with that. But now that we're seeing it under a different regime, one that we know we've seen the way Dan's teams have played at Coachella Valley, they had net front presences. So it can't be part of him. You know, we know he didn't really change his system that much coming over. I can't imagine he told guys to stay away from the slot. So no coach would. So it really is just kind of confirmed now and given us that answer of this is a personnel issue. This is not a coaching staff issue, which then creates a whole different group of questions, because when you at least thought it was the coach, that's a lot easier to fix or replace than when it's a personnel problem and you have too many guys not wanting to go to the areas they need to.
Right. And speaking of the personnel, though, I do want to bring up a comment here because I think it's a great comment. Jessica actually bringing up Cole's observation that maybe Shane Wright is watching these games and noticing that he needs to be the net front guy when he comes back into the lineup. There's not a whole lot. It's tough to make a trade. It's tough to make some big changes in season, but they do have somebody who was up in the press box tonight that has shown his ability to go to the net in the past.
And you know what? He played that way during training camp, right? Like, how many drills through training camp were we seeing where Shane Wright was net front and he was able to kind of do that or be that, or even when we would see them working on the power play into the season, RJ, and they have Shane Wright in that bumper role and they're doing their things before a practice or whatever, when they're doing their power play work or before practice officially starts. And Shane Wright, he's just so good at boxing people out and he understands it so well. And we saw that a lot through his game this season where he's been doing that in the corners and stuff to win puck battles. But we know that he can do that. He knows he can do that. Hopefully that was part of the conversation that the coaching staff had with him around this scratch and wanting to get him back to the way he was playing through training camp and the camp he had in the preseason and everything. Hopefully that was brought up. And that's one of the things that, he's been looking for, because I think that would be, it would be so nice if he came back in the lineup and he brought that for the team, RJ, because it would just mean so much more success every time he's out there on the ice.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that starts next game. I would be really surprised if he didn't come into the lineup starting next game. If he's scratched for another game, I'd start to ask, really, okay, what's the point?
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely something. Got a couple super chats here. First one from Light. Not particularly mad at that game, to be honest. I mean, there are definitely things to take away from it that are positives for the Kraken. First and foremost is Joey Daccord, right? Like you already kind of mentioned it. Joey made some incredible saves in this one, whether it was the 2-on-0 shorty opportunity that the Kings had that, like, I don't think I've ever seen a goaltender stop before in my life. And Joey stands strong and is able to make the save with the top of his stick, the shaft of his stick. Absolutely incredible. There's another breakaway opportunity in the third that he was able to stop. That chance that was thrown in front for Adrian Kempe late there, where Adrian Kempe, a guy who scored a lot of goals in this league, has no choice but to just stare up at the rafters in disbelief because Joey was able to make that save. Joey definitely is by far and away, like, he is playing great. There's no signs of wear and tear or that he's playing too much hockey or anything like that, RJ. Joey is phenomenal.
This is the best run of goaltending the Kraken have ever had. Joey Daccord is playing fantastic, and I'm running out of ways to express that sentiment. I was asking you during the live commentary, how do I do this for the podcast this week? Because we have to talk about Joey Daccord. We have to talk about what we're seeing here and how special it is. And I'm just running out of ways to talk about it. I think the one I had been going with for a while is that every shot that he even has a remote chance of stopping, he is stopping. And that has remained the case for about a month now. And it's just incredible to watch. Even that 2-on-0, that was absolutely nuts. There was not a single Kraken skater in the frame until that shot came. They had all day, passed it back and forth several times, just waiting for something to open up on Joey. But you know what? He didn't give him anything because he stayed on his feet. He just made a little push each way to the point where he was ready to go back to the other side if another pass came through, and then ends up getting it with the shaft of his stick. That is so well played. I have no more words.
Yeah.
Just Joey Daccord has been fantastic.
Other good things from this game. You get, Brandon Montour played fantastic. I thought the pairing of him and Alexiak was really solid, as it always is. Defense did a good job in this one. I also liked the way that, some of the guys that we've been talking about a lot this year were playing. Yanni Gourde doing his thing, getting in there, being physical. He was not the only guy, it feels like tonight, RJ, that we saw consistently win physical battles, because we were not seeing many guys win consistently with those physical battles, but Yanni Gourde felt like one of them. Brandon Tanev being able to do the work again, kind of continuing the way he's been playing all year. So there were those positives for the group in this one.
I'll throw Ty Karche in there as well. I mean, he was one of the few Kraken that was actually able to dictate certain things physically, as opposed to just try and match physicality in this game. The Kings are a big team. They can forecheck you. They've got some big boys. I mean, especially Helenius, who just stood out to me. He made Adam Larson look small on a few of those plays. So the Kings are a big body team, and they decided, it felt like after the first period, to really try and exert their will physically in this one. And it's tough because the Kraken just don't have guys who are that size that can match it. Only a few players really did. I think they did get pushed around otherwise.
Yeah. And then a super chat here from Thomas, and it was great to see you in the live game commentary, Thomas, as well. First of all, release Shane or put him in the AHL. He needs minutes. Secondly, would pay good money to see a full game as it was in those last minutes. Kraken, they are just a different team, RJ, when they're down and it is late. Like, they play so well with the net empty. They play so well with their backs up against the wall. I'm with Thomas. I would pay a lot of money to see them play that way. It doesn't even need to be a full 60. Just give me a period. Like, start the third period with that energy.
Right. And you probably get at least a couple goals. You certainly get yourself back into this one. You get a point. I don't know why it takes so long for it to kick in, or even really with the goalie pulled for it to kick in. I understand when you pull the goalie, you have an extra skater, and so that helps you a lot. There were definitely plays that would have been cleared otherwise, but you have a sixth skater to help keep it in. I get that. but it just seems like there is that extra sense of urgency as well that you can still have when you have a 5-man unit out there, but we just aren't really seeing from the Kraken.
They get creative, right? Like we see the players on the ice just start to make plays. They're not thinking and they're not like really looking around and analyzing all of their options. You really start seeing them play instinctively. And that's, I think, something that we need to see a little bit more from them. And then on the Shane front, and I know there's a lot of comments talking about, not expecting to see Shane sat for 3 games, all of that kind of stuff too. I brought it up on the live game commentary. There better be some sort of plan around this, because yes, he does need minutes, and you do need to find a way to work him back in, and not just back in general, but in a way that he can play some meaningful minutes and get going and start learning and progressing. Because otherwise this could get ugly, and it's just something that the Kraken have to find a way of kind of finally dealing with. It's been a long road.
It has, and that it's really, if you look at the organizational priorities list, it should be pretty darn high in the long term, even though, maybe you're making sacrifices in the short term.
Yeah. And Zoe, you have an idea for how to work him back in? McCann, Beniers, Wright as a line.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. I honestly, putting Shane at the wing is something I think needs to happen. I thought, maybe on Stevenson's line after this one, because Sprong maybe had an iffy game, to say the least. I think that would probably be a better starting spot for him. But, we saw Berkey moved off of that line with McCann and Beniers. I mean, why not? Like, seriously, just one of those 2 lines, as long as he's getting that ice time, I think it's a positive. And then also from Zoe, the amount of times I've seen them practicing tip-ins at practice for them not to be net front is frustrating. It is, right? Like, this is one of those things where, like, you and I have both seen them practice that stuff a lot in practice, and then it's just not there for the game.
It almost feels like the guys tipping the shots in practice, or it's just there so that the point man can get practice putting in tippable shots.
Yeah.
Like Montour loves to practice that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a rough one. B, yet another stellar Joey Daccord performance wasted. If the power play wasn't so sad, this would have been a completely different game. And that's a good point that B makes there, RJ, because, power play goes 0 for 3. And did it look dangerous? Not particularly.
Really.
No. Like, that's something they have to figure out too, is just how to make that look better. And again, I talked earlier about the off the rush chances being predictable. The power play is also predictable in the sense that they're looking for the same thing there as well. And even with some player movement we saw on this one up top, where the 3 guys were kind of cycling around up there, if they're not going to be taking shots from up there, it doesn't matter.
And I kept asking myself when watching the power play, okay, what's the end game? What's the win condition here? What are you trying to set up? And I know you've countered me a couple times in the last couple games. We're saying, I don't know that there is one. And I've been trying to figure it out, because I'm watching like, okay, what are they going for here? And you turn to me, you're like, I don't know that they're going for anything.
Which is a scary thought. Like, that's not what we want. Like, that's not what it should be. Like, I don't genuinely believe that there isn't one, because there has to be. Otherwise, like it just has to be. But it's all I can think of, right? And I'm sure you're the same way. It's just them looking for one of those like backdoor passes down low. And
we see it in practice. We see them pull stuff off in practice. We see them try plays.
They use the bumper.
Good looking power play goals. They use the bumper in practice. Maybe that they need to tell the PKers in practice, that team, just to, I don't know, go a little bit harder, because it feels like we're not seeing that about 100%, which makes sense. It's a practice. You're not going out there trying to lie down, block shots, get in the way of your teammates, all that stuff in a practice. But it feels like when they're playing against actual NHL penalty killers who are trying their absolute best, they're just not able to get away with the same things. I
wouldn't hate that either, because then maybe the penalty kill wouldn't be so passive either, which came back to bite them in this one as well. But that's a whole different story to get into. Zoe with the super chat here. Against the Ducks, why not try Shane at Maddie's wing? If we're any other team, I think Stevenson is better, but it's the Ducks. I'm all for it. Like I said, either of those 2 lines, but I do think working Shane back in, and I know you said especially against a team like the Ducks, that is the way to go.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, they're going to have a lot of opportunities against the Ducks. Shane, like, he's going to get his chances. They just need to put him in a position to succeed. I want to see him get, I'm looking this up here, but like, I want to see him get, maybe it's tough when he's coming right back in the lineup, but I was going to say a career high ice time in a game. I don't think he's gotten more than 16 minutes and change in a game in his career.
Yeah. I mean, I think If when he comes back into the lineup,
Yeah.
14.5 is the absolute bare minimum he should ever see. Like
Yes.
that's the absolute bottom floor, basement floor that Shane should be getting ice time wise once he comes back, because anything less than that, and you're just treating him like a fourth liner again.
And maybe I'm underestimating the Ducks, but I just feel like defensively, like they're not that good. They can't really hurt
No,
you,
it's all
right?
just Dostal for them. Like that's it.
Yeah, it's all Dostal. And so yeah, if Shane gets a bunch of grade A chances, gets shut down because of the goalie, like that's fine. That doesn't kill his confidence. That's, you did what you
Everybody's
could.
doing that. Yeah.
Everyone's doing that. Exactly. And the Ducks, they're second to last in the league in goal scoring. They're not going to be able to beat you in transition or whatever. If if you sell out, I feel like they can't hurt you that much, right?
Yeah.
You might as well give Shane every opportunity. This is going to be easy mode for him and for everybody. Let's see what he can do.
Exactly. And you get back-to-back games against them too, which is going to be nice. Gary here with the super chat. Appreciate that. Despite the loss, holy freaking goaltending. Some highlight reels from this one. That Joey save off the 2-man breakaway. Insert Dreeg's reaction vid. Perfect pull there, Gary, for that one. I mean, again, we went back and we're just like trying to figure out like what was even going on there, because it's just so not something you see ever.
No, I mean, 2-on-0s are just about automatic unless the team with the puck just flubs it or something. Unless the pass goes missed, they set up more or less what they wanted to set up. They made 3 or 4 cross ice passes, got the shot off clean, and it was a save. I can't remember the last time I've seen that.
I don't think I ever have. Like, I just don't. Like, outside of maybe in like some bantam game I was scouting, maybe I saw something like that, but usually that's because they mess it up.
Yeah.
Certainly at the NHL level, you just don't see that. Joey was fantastic. All those saves we mentioned, and other ones that he makes look easy, right? Like he just does such an incredible job. Do we have, by the way, RJ, what the final like expected goal total for the Kings was?
We do, and it's funny, we thought it was kind of being overcounted earlier in the game.
On, yeah.
It feels undercounted to me. They have, according to Natural Stat Trick, 2.41 expected goals in this one. I don't know how it's that low.
I was just going to say it better be 4. It better start with a 4.
It was 1.33 of those were in the first period. So it's giving the Kings
no sense to me.
Only about 1 expected goal in the final 2 periods.
Right. The 2-on-0 and the 2-on-0 plus the
breakaway.
The breakaway, but no, the Kempe one.
The Kempe one, the cross ice for
one. Like those alone have to be more. Now, here is something, and I've often wondered this, and I don't entirely know the answer, but maybe you do or somebody in chat does. How much of that stuff does expected goals really take into account, or is it mostly just looking at where the shot attempt comes from and like that, right?
Yeah, different models factor in different things. I know there are some more complex ones that factor in pre-shot movement and that can factor in a pass location, like that Kempe one. Others do not. Some even factor in the player who's taking the shot, right? Or the type of shot, backhand, one time or whatever. It depends on the model. And I'm not well enough versed with Natural Stat Trick versus Money Puck to know exactly what they include.
Because that has always been a thought for me around expected goals, is like, how do you really apply an expected goal number to that like 2-on-0 breakaway?
Yeah, it's right. And most models will probably either take the location of the final shot, which was off a little bit to the side.
Yeah.
Some will take into the pre-shot movement of, okay, there was a pass kind of right in that spot. Right. Or maybe some will take the player taking the shot, who I forget who it was. I know Byfield was with him. Fogle, yeah. And you see Fogle then is taking that shot from that area. And maybe it adds up to that. It's really hard to capture also just how much time they had. They had all day. Right?
It's a true 2-on-0.
That's one. And especially because it's a rarer chance that I don't know. That one I could see a model particularly struggling with to really capture exactly what's going on there.
Yeah. And I guess that's always been like my thing, is like, I don't know that it can always properly capture everything that goes into a play. Is really hard to capture and break it down into just a number for any stat or analytic. And that's one that I've always thought about with expected goals, because that one, or that Kempe chance, I don't know how you can properly, distill that down into a number like that, because they're they're incredible chances, but a lot goes into it before that actual shot is taken. And I could see if you're just looking at the shot on the where it happened from, it's just not appropriate to what the play itself was. Kraken fan here with the super chat as well. Here's hoping the Sounders have better luck against LA in their playoff game tonight. That would be nice. Yeah, that would definitely be nice.
Is that one in LA or is that up here?
Weren't the Sounders? Which round is this? Like, because they made it out of the first round. Is this?
Yes.
Yeah. But then it goes to just best up, like one-off games, which is really weird. I've never understood that about MLS. Oh, all right. Hopefully they got some good luck there. Okay, let's see.
Real quick, Bazzi said on the models and everything, free models don't take them into account. Sport Logic takes them into account. I know Sport Logic is better than a lot of the free stuff out there.
Oh yeah, Sport Logic's the best conceivable thing that we could have access to. I feel like I have to imagine the teams that have their stuff like should
it's all even
take that stuff into account. Yeah. Edward, screw matinee games. All my homies hate matinee games again. we thought we'd escaped it. We escaped it for a whole week there. Love it. Let's see, Jeremy. I get that's the style of hockey the Kings want to play, but it's so awful and boring watching it. The Kings did do a great job, and Coach Jess Campbell talked about it during the second intermission interview. They do a really good job of playing like this weird passive clog up passing lanes whenever you're trying to come in against them through the neutral zone and then into the defensive zone too.
Yeah, and they kind of shrink down, but not in a bad way necessarily. They just take away all the middle of the ice, which unfortunately for the Kraken is kind of all they were trying to do was go cross ice and create those types of chances. And I was advocating around the second period that maybe change that mindset a little bit. Just try firing some pucks on net, going for rebounds, because that's much harder to defend against when you go and just try and kind of clog the middle there. You're going to have some cleaner chances that you give up, but they're going to be in the form of shots.
Yeah. Christian, I waited to ask this for post game. With the guys not being net front and doing the things that they should be doing, even with the coaching change, have you guys seen anything like this in all your years of watching hockey? And that is a very interesting question. I would probably need a little bit more time to think about it than just on the fly. But my gut reaction is usually when I see teams, kind of play that poorly, and then there's a coaching change, usually on the other side of the coaching change, there is a drastic change in how they're playing that way.
Right. And you'll see the new coach's message usually picks up pretty well, and you'll see it in the results because they just play a different way. I think teams often will try and find a coach that's near an opposite of the coach that they just let go, right? Somebody who kind of has that outside perspective. I will say, Dan Bylsma, as much as we like him, he was still somebody who was brought in from within the organization. And so it's less of a change in that respect than maybe some other coach, someone who would be a total outside hire.
Yeah. No, that is true. I was going to say the other times that maybe I would have seen that kind of consistently carry over probably be around teams like going through a rebuild. So you're talking about a group that's, not maybe the greatest. Sam, at least Coco is spared from getting no goal support. 6-0 despite a save percentage being under 900. It's the way to do it, RJ. That's the way to do it. Sounds like a Kings goaltender, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, that's goal support, right?
Yep. That is what goal support could do. Just, oh man. Can you imagine if Joey had some of that? He'd never lose a game.
I know. Playing the way he is, yeah.
Yeah. Ricky, Kraken are a backup goalie dream matchup. That's the other thing that's so frustrating about it is like it's always a backup goalie, RJ. It's always somebody like David Riddick where it's just like, come on.
Yeah, we've had a few of those lately. I mean, Jonathan Quick also. It does feel like teams kind of recognize that too. I feel like the Kraken get the backups a lot, especially against better teams.
Yeah. Virginia, they're breaking down the Kings power play. The five of them surround our stupid PK box and just come closer and closer. It's like watching the pocket collapse in football. Very, very similar. Yeah, that's a good pull there. That was driving me crazy when it was happening too. For those in the live game commentary, I was freaking out at that because it looked like a 5-on-3 RJ. That's what happens when a team is down two guys, not just one.
Right, and you were complaining about that too as it was going on. Even a few seconds before the goal, you could tell something bad was coming because of how much they shrank down low. And I think the intermission report, I didn't have the volume on for it because we were running the stream, but I think on intermission they showed the Kings box and how it was just kind of shrinking and
Mhm.
collapsing in on the Kraken penalty killers, and nothing good's going to come from that.
Yeah. It's just something you can't allow. And even with that, we were talking about it, because it is a great shot from Quentin Byfield, right? Like that's a very steep angle. He puts it exactly where it needs to be. It was a good shot from him. And the way you could stop that is just by having any aggressiveness to you. Like you could just crank it up to 20% aggressive. And I don't remember, I think it was Stevenson who might have been the near side guy there, just gets a stick more in the way of whoever makes that pass. I forget who ended up getting the primary assist there. Kevin Fiala, right? Like Kevin Fiala's feed is just right perfectly in Quentin Byfield's wheelhouse because he take the time to set up that very nice pass for him, right? Like you just have to pressure him as the puck carrier at all. He's down to the face-off circle. Like,
Especially since, and we pointed this out, the Kings had 5 forwards on their power play unit.
yes.
There was not a single defenseman out there. And so I was thinking, I smell blood, right? If
Hmm.
you put aggressive guys, I think Tanev was out there, but maybe a more aggressive center like a Yanni Gord or even a Jared McCann on that PK unit, you can get it going the other way because they really don't have guys that can go back and defend. And yet they were as passive as I've ever seen them, which is the opposite of what you want to do against a 5 forward unit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. I don't know. The passive PK has been an issue all year, but this felt like a new level. Like watching that happen felt like something new entirely. They've got to do something to kind of pick that up. And it does feel like if you could get the power play, wow, RJ, this sounds like last year. If you could get the power play scoring and you get the PK unit keeping other teams from scoring on the power play, and you just flip special teams, a lot of these 1-goal games, even 2-goal games, you probably start flipping the results on those.
That's how you win these games. These two, especially a 2-1 hockey game, you win that on the power play. And we
Yeah.
saw the Kings won it on the power play tonight or today. That's
Yeah.
how you do it.
Yeah. Lots of talk around Shane Wright in here and the scratching. I mean, I will just say this just to kind of blanketly cover it. I don't think he's a bust, but I do think that you have to start getting concerned at some point about it because if you let it kind of continue like this forever, you will mess up his development if you haven't kind of already started to. And I talked about this on last week's podcast. Based on looking at other comparables to him in this situation, this is not his make or break year, but next year is his make or break year. So you want to start doing things to get him confident at the NHL level so that he can enter next season kind of as strong and ready to go as he can be, because next year is going to be really important as far as determining really where he's going to stand for a large portion of his NHL career.
Right. And that's got to be a priority for the Kraken long term. I mean, as Ricky is saying, only way this team escapes mid tier is through the young guys developing. Like he is your
Mhm.
ticket out of this if he can become that franchise player that you hope he can be. And so it's about putting him in those positions to succeed, which I hope we see starting next game. I imagine we will. And he's got to kind of take it from there and have that mindset. But yeah, you do worry a little bit if we're at the point where he kind of has to be scratched for a few games. I just want to see him in that top 6 role. Let him sink or swim, and maybe
Yep.
he sinks. But
Yep.
you have to give him the chance to do it, which I don't feel like they really have yet.
Yeah, no, I don't feel like
Except
it
for the
has either.
brief time that he was with McCann and Eberle, and he was doing well then.
Exactly. The other thing is, also at least a lot of the other young guys on this team are looking good. Not necessarily with the Kraken, within this organization, I should say,
Yeah.
are looking good. A lot of the guys that I was very curious to see how they were going to transition to the AHL look like they're responding very well. And Chalet, first and foremost, has been fantastic down there and is looking really solid. And again, people were calling him a bust based on what he was doing in the CHL last year. So he can very much flip on a dime once a guy just gets put into a good spot. You can really see them start performing again. So I will say that, like I said, I am preaching patience right now, but at some point you do have to be like, okay, like you can't be patient forever. And I'm kind of starting to get there a little bit with him being scratched right now. Light with the super chat. In Coco's defense, his save percentage is only sub 900 because of 2 games. He's only allowed more than 2 in those 2 games. So yeah, no, Coco has been playing fantastic down there. Again, another one where transition going very smoothly for him coming over from Europe, RJ, getting into the AHL, and he's looking really solid and like somebody who's going to be able to contribute to the Kraken for a long time.
Yeah, it's really a perfect scenario for Coco because we saw him in training camp and we were so impressed. We thought he was the third best goalie out there behind Daccord and Grubauer, and he's playing like it so far. I mean, he's kind of stepped up and taken that role in the AHL. And remember what Ron said in the offseason, like, well, maybe you'll get some time in the AHL, some time in the ECHL just to make sure he gets enough games in. I don't think we need to worry about that. He is good enough for the AHL. He's showing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Aaron, power play's only contribution right now is losing draws to start the man advantage and sucking the wind out of the entire team. They are
You were sick of that.
I was so mad about that. Yes, because it was every single time you start the power play and you lose it. And we know that this team can take a little while to get set up again, get the zone entry and everything. I will say they're better at the zone entries on the power play than last year. Because like last year, if you could clear once against this team, you were never going to have to deal with anything again, right? Like you could skate out the rest of that 2 minutes, no problem. This year, the Kraken will get set up again at some point, but you're still taking a good 20 to 25 seconds off the clock.
Right. It kills a lot of that timing and that momentum. And especially if you have something drawn up that you want to get working on, you have a set play, you can't guarantee that by the time you get set up again, you're going to have that same look and everything that you want. It feels like the Kraken do have a lot of stuff that they try and get working off of faceoffs. And that's just been killing them, especially that 4-on-3 opportunity they had for about 30 seconds. You lose the draw off of that. You get stopped again, and just you don't even have any time to set up, even after they were able to draw something up.
Yeah. Fusion mix. Bob Wood's power play looking like it did in Minnesota, I fear. Super lucky that Joey was in Fogel's head and made him pass back to Byfield instead of shooting on the 2-on-0. I did think that they waited a little too long before they finally got the shot there. We did talk about that. But yeah, I guess I got to go back and look at more of the Minnesota power plays from last year, RJ. But yeah, it does feel like, again, there's just, like we're talking about, there's just kind of no obvious direction that they're working towards. And that's a little worrisome when you're talking about the man advantage.
Yeah, it's an area where you need to make that extra man count. Yeah, I haven't watched a ton of Woods power plays in Minnesota, but I want to see more. Again, I want to see what the end condition is, right? I want to see that they're trying to set something specific up because they'll have time and space when they get set up. What do you want to do with it? Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe you can't execute just right. Maybe it doesn't go in. And I feel like early in the season, I was seeing that maybe they weren't always executing, but we saw what they were going for with the puck movement. There was always something they were trying to set up. Feels like we're not seeing that anymore.
Right. And I get a terrible Lotus here. They just asked Dan what is missing from the power play, and he said putting it in the net. That's basically what Jess was saying during the second intermission report, right? It was like, just gotta score. Like it's a little weird to me that everybody keeps just being like, well, what's missing? We just got to score. And it is fun. Like I like when Dan does that stuff. It is fun and it gets a laugh and all of that is fine. And it does help take the edge off when the coach can be a little not serious with it. But at some point, this has really been, RJ, as I'm thinking about it, as I'm talking this out, which I often need to do, this is the one time where we don't hear this coaching staff, or certainly Dan, break anything down. Because, right, we've been very impressed with how much Dan breaks down plays. If you ask him about something, he'll at least try to find an example of what he's going to talk about to reference for you. I don't know that for special teams we've ever had that happen. I'm just thinking of the media availabilities we've had.
Right. I can't think of anything either. And especially after a game like this, it's puzzling to hear that. There are some games where you don't score on a power play and you're thinking, man, we did everything but score. We set up the chances we wanted to. The puck just didn't go in for us. And I'm very forgiving in those situations, right? It's tough. It's bad luck sometimes. The Kraken had almost 4 minutes of power play time, 3:57 in this one. On the power play at 5-on-4. They also had the 4-on-3 time. You know how many shot attempts they had?
No.
In about 4 minutes. 3 shot attempts to 1 against, actually. And then well, maybe that doesn't say the whole story is quality. They actually, the Kings had more expected goals for while the Kraken were on the power play in this one on 5-on-4.
See, like that's
after
something...
a game like that, I don't feel like the only thing we didn't do is put the puck in the net.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. And but it was, again,
Viren says that's a Hackstall response. Yeah, it is.
It is. And that was also the response from assistant coach Jess Campbell. And like, that's a little bit of an issue. And, again, obviously I very much believe in both of them and Coach Bob Woods that behind the scenes, they are working on this. Right. Yeah. And it isn't necessarily something where it's like, well, we've been looking at it and we really think we're going to start doing X, Y, and Z. Why would you like telegraph that and put that in the media before you go and play against other teams? But it is something that it is curious because, like I said, we've asked Dan tough questions about the way the team's playing before, and he's like broken it down. And I can't remember a time where he's done that with the power play.
Yeah. Maybe we ought to push on that a little bit more when they
come back. Yeah. Well, we'll see how they do against the Ducks. Because again, I'm willing to say that like scoring against the Ducks might be difficult right now because it is for everybody. Dostal is absolutely playing out of his mind. But I at least want to see it look dangerous, right? Like even if you don't score on the power play against the Ducks, like look like you could have.
Yes, that's all I'm asking for at this point, right? Whether it goes in or not, a lot of that is luck based, but generate some stuff, get some chances.
Yeah. And then Alex here, I'm frankly surprised the team has never tried Maddie and Wright together just to see what it looks like, because a bunch of people have talked about that pairing. The organization as a whole has seemed very reluctant to play centers on the wing, right? Unless it's like, this is a committed approach we're taking and we are transitioning you to a winger a la Ryan Winterton, right? As an example. And whenever we've heard anything about that, that has always come from general manager Ron Francis. Do you think that is just something that like is part of the organizational philosophy, is that we just don't move guys around?
And especially with Ron Francis being a legendary center who played center in his NHL career, maybe sees the importance of that. And I think there's a good reason. Look, you want Shane Wright to develop as a center. He is a natural center. That's where he's ultimately going to be in the long term. You can put him on wing to kind of help his confidence. I think you should at this point, but you want him ultimately developing as a center because that also provides you a whole lot more value for most players that you have, especially guys with the two-way chops of a Matty Beniers and a Shane Wright. So I get that, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was kind of part of the organizational philosophy. That said, we did see very, very briefly. Do you remember which game it was where it was it McCann, Beniers, and Wright? For a little bit. Which game was that? I tweeted about it.
I don't remember offhand.
Yes.
It was very brief though.
It was very brief. And I was hoping we might see a little bit more of it in certain situations. It was an end of period thing.
Yes.
And I would like to see more of that.
Was it Vegas? Was it the Vegas game? It was Maybe. This past homestand, but towards the beginning, right?
Yeah. I thought it was when they were, it was Chicago. I'm looking at Chicago.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that was post Eberle injury.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, it was.
Kind
of
switched in that game around.
Yeah.
I liked that look. We saw it only for a little bit. Like there wasn't enough sample size for me to say, oh, I like how they did or not. But I like.
They didn't really do anything. But yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what everybody's been asking for so far this post game live. Viren, is the problem that their bad power play is practicing against their bad penalty kill? I honestly do think that there is an element of that. Like I think with the penalty kill, it's more of like you guys need to practice the way you need to play right now, where it's just practice with intensity so that come the game, you can bring that aggressiveness and everything. And I do think that like on the flip side of that, the power play would then have to get better. But I think that starts with the PK more than it starts with the power play.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's just so tough because in practice, like you cannot sell out on a PK the way you do in a game.
I know
you can't be going down to block shots.
I know, but you don't need to. They just need to get sticks in the way, right? Like they're so like tonight. Like you just need to get sticks in the way. You need to sit in a passing lane. Like you just have to do more than just kind of stand in your passive box, because we've seen that all year, especially from. I mean, we were starting to get away with it a little bit with this group, but with the Stevenson Tanev forward group or forward pairing, I mean, there's just been you go back to the Minnesota game, second game of the season, we were talking about this, and here it was again tonight being a problem for them. Like it shouldn't be considered selling out just to have one of those guys charge at a puck carrier.
No, I mean, you see your spots and you go. Yeah, it's not like that. It is not selling out in itself, I guess, or or like
Yeah.
when you work a board battle, things like that, I guess. But
Yeah.
it's
I just want to
it
see a
is tough
little
to
of that.
simulate. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I just want to see a little bit of that. Maddie asking, do you think Gru plays on Monday?
Interesting. I mean,
it's tough because you don't want to overwork Joey. But right now, the way Joey's been playing, he's been lights out. You want to keep that going. You want him to continue to have that momentum. And you need these points. And he's going to be the guy to put you in the best spot to get them.
right. Well, so Gru is going to get one of the San Jose games because they're back-to-backs.
Yeah.
So he's playing one of those games against San Jose.
He'll get the road game.
I was thinking the road game. So he's playing that. So that would mean what? Just 4 consecutive starts for Joey? That's not too bad. If he plays both of the Ducks games, yeah. I would start him the first game against the Ducks. See what the situation is. I mean, if you go out there and blow him out, maybe you feel comfortable that you could start Gru for that second Ducks game because you can kind of take him lightly and you're okay. But I just feel like you can't mess around with these points right now, because these are points you absolutely need. You're not going to be playing teams this bad the rest of the season. You have to pick up these points now while you can.
Yeah, it's one where we talked about it on the live game.
Islanders
commentary.
Rangers. Oh, sorry.
No, Pacific Division is very like bunched up right now, right?
Yes.
Like you take any 2 points you can go out there and get, because it could very much end up mattering for you. And Fusion Mix talked about the Ducks will play like psychos if you come out sleepy. Talked about the game that they had against Dallas, where they were all over Dallas for a good half of that game. There are some times when I watch this Ducks team, RJ, because I've been watching just to watch Dostal mostly. And see why it's not working with any of their young guys. And there are times where I watch them and they do look like a team that has just said, F it. We don't care about this coach. We're just going to do our own thing and we're just going to have fun because we're a bunch of young guys that were drafted high and we have skills and we're just going to go out there and try to make some highlight reel stuff happen. It's not good in the sense like it's not going to win them a lot of games, but there are times where they do like just pull something out of nowhere and you're just like, I don't think I've ever seen that before. And the defense clearly has no idea what to do with it.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. So I was looking up the some of the PK numbers also with like Stevenson and stuff. I was left on the last thing because Viren was asking if Stevenson was that bad or passive on the PK in Vegas. If you watch them, I did not, because I do not hate myself that much.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch them enough to know, but I was looking at like just expected goals against per 60 on the PK, and he is kind of 4th on the team. Borgen, Beniers, Tanev, Stevenson. It's not terrible. He's kind of lumped in with everybody else. Yeah. I just was seeing if he was kind of a problem on the PK numbers.
Do you have his numbers from last year with Vegas?
Let's check. I could get those pretty quickly.
All right. And Fusion Mix, I don't know the Ducks can create the way a good team can, but they can exploit weakness. Technically, both these teams operate like that. Should it be exciting at least? Yeah, I think it will be exciting. The Ducks are a team that are capable of putting stuff together. And Bazzi pointing out, Ducks are on a 4-game point streak. So yeah, I've been preaching from the beginning not to take this Ducks team lightly, mostly because of Dostal, really more than anything because of Dostal. But it should be a good game, but it should be one that the Kraken are able to get going.
Yeah, Stevenson was middle of the pack on that Vegas team on the PK. He was better than Eichel and Howden, worse than Hertl, Carlson, Ronberg, some of those other guys.
Okay. Matt asking, Ben Myers has gotten an extended look. What have you seen from him? I liked the play tonight with Tanev when Tanev was able to kind of box out the defenders and sit net front with the puck and then get it over to Ben Myers for that look. I did like that one. For the most part, though, outside of the first game, I thought he played a really strong first game. These last 2 games, I feel like he's looked like a 4th-line NHL center. Not much happens when he's out there, but largely that's usually what you want out of your 4th-line center.
Yeah, he kind of is the stereotypical 4th-line center, the guy who plays a little smaller, kind of speed-based game. He brings some pace whenever he's out there, and I like to see that. But yeah, I feel like I've seen so many guys. I could name you 10 or 15 names just across the 2 decades I've watched hockey of just those like 4th-line center guys. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. But Carson Kuhlman was kind of, he was more like a winger there. Austin Zarnik, he's kind of looking like that.
Yeah, yeah. Shannon, Eberle news is devastating, but we all knew it was coming. Does that news going public ruin morale to a point where we see an outing like this?
Ooh, sorry, can you repeat the beginning of that question? It cut out for me on the audio.
Just the Eberle news was
Yeah, yeah.
devastating. We kind of knew it was coming. Does the news going public ruin morale? I don't think so.
Well, I think first of all, everybody in that room knew that it was bad long before we did. You know,
Yes.
the teammates talk. The players know what generally what the
Right.
injuries are, and the longer it goes on before you get an update, you know how bad it is. I don't know that it would ruin morale. Obviously, it sucks to have your captain out for that long. Like it's going to make an impact on the room, but I feel like NHL players just always have that next man up mentality. And if you're kind of a competitive type of guy, you know, for yourself, it's going to probably mean more opportunity for you if you're one of the forwards. And so that's something that I know players like to get. You know, you don't like the reason it happens, but like an Andre Burakovsky, you know, he loves that opportunity to go play top 6 minutes, right? And these other guys that are going to have more ice time. So I think that's kind of more the way that they see it.
Yeah. I'm starting to think, by the way, Berkey's a real homestand player. Because like he looked great playing on that line, the homestand did not look good tonight at all. I'm wondering if he's one of those guys that benefits from sleeping in his own bed and having the home cooking.
Huh. Hadn't thought about that, but maybe.
I mean, because when the talk about him was loudest, it was on that road trip last time.
That's
So
true.
I'm wondering.
I mean, the whole team was playing worse too, and
yeah,
you had but so
he was taking a large brunt of it. I am curious to hear your thoughts on this because you and I haven't even talked about this privately really yet, RJ. From Sam, do you guys hear the rumor of Team Canada thinking about exploiting Joey's dual citizenship to make him one of their goalies for the Four Nations tournament?
I have not heard about that.
Oh, okay. I have. They've been talking about it on Discord and stuff. So I thought I wondered if you had heard it. But yeah, like that would be something that they could potentially pull off here. And the way he's playing, why shouldn't he be in that conversation?
He's a top 3 goalie in the league right now, I think, with the way he's playing. And the numbers bear that out. Why wouldn't you? That's really fascinating.
Especially for a group like Team Canada.
Right. That's the thing. It's not like your Team USA. You've got Hellebuck, Ottinger, all these guys to choose from, right? I mean, who else is there? Who else would they be looking at?
It's a very thin group.
Wow,
I'm trying to remember back when we did our like rosters for it, like our picks and stuff for rosters. I don't really even remember who I even had in the conversation for Team Canada because it's just like they'll, whoever's playing hot is I think what I ended up saying. Like just whoever's having a good season, you just kind of grab them. That's Joey.
It really is. Maybe we should just then when they come back home, just throw that at him. Be like, hey, you want to play for Team Canada? Just see how he reacts.
Yeah.
Would you do it?
I mean, I'm just going through like the goaltenders that are having good seasons right now, and just none of them outside of Joey are Canadian.
Yeah. There's not Byron says, I think Friedman said Canada hadn't asked, but Switzerland had asked for the Olympics.
Yes. That
Four Nations puts him home in Boston too, as Rebecca's pointing out.
Right. So it would be interesting.
It would feel really weird to see him though with that maple leaf on his chest.
It would.
I don't look at him as Canadian.
It just in red, like I think it's gonna look a little weird.
I mean, he played for Ottawa.
Yeah, that's true. But like I'm just going through even some of the guys like we talked about on Red Glare yesterday on Patreon about goaltenders that have been playing well this season and surprising, like a Dustin Wolfer and Anthony Stolars. They're both American. Like there's just nobody. Dostal, check. Like there's just nobody.
Yeah. Stratic says Talbot is the next best Canadian goalie by GSVA. Aiden Hill.
If you're
Canada and you're trying to win this thing, go get Joey.
It's an all-time fumble of the bag if you're Team Canada, which they've been doing a lot. Like Hockey Canada has been fumbling a lot of bags all over the place right now. But like roster construction has been a tough one for them. It would be ridiculous if they don't take him. I mean, you could make an argument that group should be him, Cam Talbot, and Logan Thompson right now. And he should start out of that group.
Yes, he should. No, he is the best goalie they have potentially available. I hadn't thought of that. This is really fascinating.
I know. That's why I was excited to bring this up, but I thought everybody would.
When is the selection for it? It's like December 2nd, 3rd. It's started December.
It's very soon. Yeah, it's very soon.
I might ask Joey about that. I'm sure he wouldn't want to like say anything.
Yeah,
But
if he's been contacted, he probably can't say anything.
yeah, he
But
probably can't say anything. But
yeah, he'll give a standard response. But yeah, it is an interesting one.
maybe the look on his face might give something away.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah,
Let's
Chuck
see.
Shifty, get to work on that red goalie mask.
Yeah, you got like a month. Let's go. Maddie asking, how do you change the behavior as a coach to get people to go net front? Telling them to go there doesn't seem to be getting through into their brains. It's one where you have to make them practice it and really work at it. There is something to be said for like with a guy like Chandler Stevenson, right? Like he is the player he's going to be. It is generally pretty hard for guys later in their careers to start changing their habits outside of maybe an injury forcing them to, or just generally slowing down. And that is often what separates the really like truly great players from like the pretty good guys. Is you will see like elite players start to adapt and change their game as they start slowing down. Evgeny Malkin is always going to be my example for the rest of my life of that, as he went through both a significant knee injury where he changed his game and still remained effective, and now in the last couple, not even the last couple years, in the last 5 years, as he's been slowing down, has changed his game again to continue that evolution to just kind of be better and continue to be able to be productive. So I don't know that you entirely can. Usually how you would change that if you're a team that's struggling with it is through acquiring players that do it, where it already is a part of their game. It's unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're talking about in the off season, find a skill guy who can go to the net, but
yeah,
they're hard to find too, because they often score lots of goals and goals are expensive.
Yeah. So the only other thing I could think of, RJ, would just be you practice the crap out of it. Just try to drill it in and have it become habit, which is a big thing that Dan talked about. And look, it did become habit as far as their overall system of getting pucks up the ice and attacking with speed and off the rush and all that kind of stuff. So in that sense, practice has, changed some guys' habits on this team.
Yeah, it has. If you make it a point of emphasis, some guys are going to get the message. Maybe not everybody, but someone will.
Yeah. Let's see. Going through here, because I know there's a lot of chat. We've been talking about a lot of stuff, so I'm kind of jumping down a little bit further. And there's just been so much Shane Wright talk too. It feels like no matter where I go in here, it's Shane Wright talk. Let's see. Light, if Joey plays for Canada, he should put an American flag on his helmet just to troll Canada. Just hide it in the maple leaf, like he hides Sparky on his current helmets.
I would love to see that.
That would be good.
I don't know, Canada. If you're Canada, obviously looking at the numbers, Joey's the best goalie you could possibly get, right? But are you worried about maybe where his loyalties lie? Do you think you playing against Team USA? You got a sleeper agent.
He's a man of 3 nations.
Yes.
In a 4 nations tournament. Like, seriously. And yeah, Byron saying Binnington's been on most of the projected rosters, and Stratic saying they'll take Aiden Hill and Binnington because they have rings. Maybe Fleury. I don't know that you take, like, Fleury would be like a great one just to like have him around and do the stuff, but you're not being serious if you take Fleury, I feel like, in this year.
I think you can be. Look, let's say Joey's off the table. If that's the case, then I think you do take Fleury as your third, not to ever play him, but just to have him around the group. Just how much he's going to help Sid. And
yeah, because Sid already very clearly does not want to have to be doing this. He looks every time they talk to him about this, or they trot him out there as like the face of Team Canada, he looks so exhausted.
He does.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna say, why not? Because Logan Thompson's actually playing well. That's why not. But it's true. That is true.
You're only realistically going to play like 2 of these guys anyway.
Yeah. And Maddie's saying, I wonder if there's a scenario that Joey would decline Canada even if he didn't get an invite from the US. I mean, here's the other question I have. Because it's an NHL tournament, RJ, if they are asked and they are not injured, do they have to go? Do they have to play in it?
I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so either, but like, I would think then these rosters are not going to look very good because a lot of guys would rather have that all-star break, and the NHL doesn't want that.
Right. I think, there's got to probably exert some pressure, but I don't know exactly.
Because we've seen them exert pressure for the all-star game.
How much money is in it? What's the prize pool?
It's a good point.
because
I don't.
that's
I
another
don't know.
motivator.
Although
and then be asking,
didn't,
and this is where I thought you were going with that question. Be asking, would Joey accepting to play for Canada impact his ability to say play for US at the Worlds? Like, is that allowed? That I don't know.
that I don't know, because it would be different. Like, as far as I know from past players that have like a dual citizenship type thing, or they can play for multiple nations, the IIHF at some point like makes you decide, like, you are this for IIHF events, and that's
Right.
usually by like world junior age. You have to make that decision, and then you're locked in. And I think guys can change that, but it's a process to change that. So I think, though, because this is not an IIHF event, I would think he could do something different here, because it's just something the NHL is throwing together. Like, again, I think that gets lost in all this because we're talking about national teams, but like, this is literally just an NHL event. They can just kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah, no, they really can. That's the thing. It's not even like sanctioned by IHF, so might as well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, you had like Team North America. You can do weird things.
Right. Yeah. A team of 23 and younger players, right? Last time they were doing something like this. Like, you can just do whatever. So I don't think that it would lock him in, but I do think that if he was to play in an IAHF event, he would get locked in, I would think. And at that point, I would look and see if he's already played in something like that, and if he's already, so to speak, chosen a side. Like, if he played in like a U17 or something.
Yeah, let's take a look. I mean, it's tough because he was like undrafted. He wasn't, the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible he
undrafted.
hasn't played in a high-level tournament with the IHF. Like, that is entirely reasonable. I would just say, like, that would be an easy thing to check and just kind of know as we're having this conversation. Why can't I find anything as far as what these nations are playing for in this NHL tournament?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see him anywhere. Yeah, I don't see anywhere on his elite prospects page.
Yeah, then he probably hasn't.
Stuff.
So he probably has not had to make this decision before, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Sam, speaking of Chalet, I wonder if he gets loaned out to Czechia for the World Junior Tournament again. Is he eligible age-wise? I think he should be. So yeah, I don't see why the Kraken organization
19.
wouldn't let him.
Yeah, I think that'd be good for him.
Yeah, I think they would let him. Yeah, because they would be the ones to decide that. I'm sure Czechia would want him. I don't know why they would
have him.
Yeah, so that's not a problem. But yeah. So I know I gotta watch more Chalet. Everybody wants it. I know it'll be coming. And again, the next prospect chat will be prospect rankings, but maybe I work video into that somehow. See what I can cook up. It'll help because the Kraken will be more on the road next month. Give me more time to do that.
This stretch of home games has been crazy. Longest homestand of the year. Not a lot of extra time to go through film.
Yes. Stratic, it'd be funny if this Four Nations thing ends up like the NHL skills competition, where the only person taking it seriously is McDavid. I don't know that he's going to totally take this seriously, RJ. Not to kill the NHL's vibe and what they're going for here, but I haven't seen a lot of guys look very enthusiastic about this tournament.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, maybe like the Finns or something who want to go out there and upset, because I think that them winning something like that would really make a big statement, and they would value that. But I don't know about some of the other guys.
Yeah, but even then, like, if you're like Sasha Barkov, you want to go repeat as like Stanley Cup champion. Like,
that's true. You've got better things.
Are you going all out in that tournament?
Ellie Tolvanen is, though. You bet. Ellie totally is.
Yes, there are going to be other guys on that roster going for it. So that is true. I feel like this is probably means this much Four Nations tournament talk probably means we're just about here at the close for this post game live. We've already done a lot of talking about the Ducks, RJ, so I don't know that there's anything we need to really bring up more so to look ahead at the next opponent the Kraken are going to be facing, because we know they can't score goals. They do some fun stuff sometimes, but otherwise this is a team being carried by goaltending right now. Thinking back to this game, we talked a lot about kind of the Kraken's flaws. I can't think of anything that I forgot to bring up, but I do want to give you the chance.
No, I think we pretty much covered it all, right? I mean, it's the lack of goal scoring still. We talked about the reasons why going to the net, the way that they're trying to generate offense, that remains a problem for this team. And especially when you play against a team who, on the times where you do have some lapses, they can burn you because they've got shooters like a Byfield, like a Kempe. It's going to be a challenge. That said, going forward, they've got 4 games against a couple, I think, pretty bad teams. This is the time to go collect your points, take care of business. It might look ugly at times. It's not always going to be pretty, but you need 4 wins here. I really think long term going into the season, you got to run through these games and do what you can. Maybe you can get goal lead in one game with an OTL or something, but you got to take care of business.
I was going to say, I think the four wins would be really nice. I think, 3-1, I think you still take, just because RJ, I am scared by the SAP game. As scary as Dostal is playing right now, I am scared about the Kraken historical ability to go into San Jose and walk out of a game looking good.
Picked a Wenberg hat trick against the Kraken at some point this season. You think that's the game for it?
I don't think it's this one. I think that comes later in the season.
Okay. All right. I just good to know what I'm about to see because I will be in San Jose for that game.
Yes. So, but Celebrini setting up Tyler Toffoli, that could happen, right? That's been happening. So I'm just saying, I need to see this team play well. Now, granted, this team is the opposite of previous teams, right? Where previously the Kraken have been terrible at home, been good on the road. So far, that has not looked the case this year at all, today included. So maybe that means they can finally win in San Jose.
Yeah, maybe that's the lifting of the curse. I just hope it's not as boring as that last one that I went to.
That was a brutal game for everyone. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for Post Game Live here today. Thanks so much to all the patrons who joined us for the live game commentary prior to this. I appreciate you spending like 4 hours with us today. It's a big commitment. We appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who gave super chats after this one too. I always, we appreciate the super chats all the time, but when they come in after games like this, it really does mean a little something extra. I feel like that people are willing to go out of their way and do that. So definitely appreciate that. Appreciate all the engagement. Appreciate all the support, everybody. And we will see you all on Monday after that Ducks game.